Did you know that juggling is one of the oldest forms of entertainment in all of human history? It's been around longer than America has. Well, not really, at least since it's been discovered, but it is over 4,000 years old. Don't believe me? Check out this Egyptian painting found in an ancient tomb that is over 4,000 years old, depicting 4 women juggling. In ancient Egypt, it was also believed that juggling could have had some religious purposes, as round objects often represented the planet's orbits, Earth, life, and death itself. So, juggling has been a huge part of human history, and to this day is still being performed around the world. And I decided that I wanted to be a part of that. So I set out a goal for myself to juggle for 25 seconds straight without dropping, and at that point I could say I successfully learned how to juggle. So let's get started. Alright, this is day number 1, and yes, I know the lighting kinda sucks in this frame, but I promise it's the only part of the video that the lighting looks like this. But anyway, let's get on to the first attempt. So we always have to start off with some sort of baseline marker of how well I can do at the beginning without any training. So here's my very first attempt at juggling. So, as you can see, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So from every tutorial I watched, they all said to start out with one ball and toss it from one hand to the other while keeping your eyes fixed on one single point. Then try to consistently throw the ball so it hits that point every time without dropping it. With a couple of minutes of practice, I had this down, and it was time for me to move to 2 balls. For some reason, this part can be tricky because when they try to juggle 2 balls, people often throw one ball from one hand to the other instead of throwing it upward. I never had this problem, but it turns out a lot of people did while trying to learn to juggle, so just keep that in mind. The proper way to juggle 2 balls is to throw one ball up and hit it at the same point as the first time. But when the ball hits that point, or when it's at its peak, throw the other ball into the air. So that's what I did, and I just kept practicing this until I got good and consistent at it. Unfortunately, I was not quite hitting the point or hitting consistent heights, but for some reason I didn't really notice while practicing, which was actually going to end up hurting me in the long run. With lots of ambition, I decided that I was going to jump immediately to 3 balls, even though I was definitely not ready for it yet. And I kept dropping it a lot, and I mean a lot of times. But about 10 minutes of practice in, I see my first bit of success. Or so I thought. You see, the problem is I started with 2 balls in my right hand and 1 in my left, which means if I'm doing this maneuver properly, I should end up with 2 in my left at the end. But as you can see, I end up with 2 in my right because I throw 1 with my right hand, 1 with my left hand, and then the other one again with my right hand. But I end up catching both the ones that I threw in my right hand instead of my left. And for some reason, I didn't notice this while practicing, so I just kept practicing this same maneuver over and over again, not realizing I was practicing all wrong. As soon as day 2 came around, I was full of excitement with all the progress I had made on day 1, or at least I thought I had made. And as I started off day 2, I decided I was going to watch back the previous video. And that's when I realized I was going to have to start learning this all over again, completely from scratch. As soon as I started practicing to do it the proper way, I noticed another problem that I never thought I would encounter. My legs were extremely sore, and I was a little confused because why would juggling use your legs that much? I mean, I'm used to standing around at my job, so this shouldn't have been that strange, but here was the problem. When you're juggling, you have to pick up the balls 100 different times every single time you drop it. And what I didn't realize is that my legs weren't used to that motion. So this made every single drop extremely painful, which really made persevering through the second day a lot more difficult. So I also wanted to maximize the learning process of doing this, so I decided I was going to use something called the Pomodoro learning technique. This is where you break up your training into 25-minute segments. So you train really hard for 25 seconds, then you take a 5-minute break, do something that you enjoy, don't think about work, don't do any work at all, and then train again for 25 more minutes. The reason for doing this is it breaks up your end goal into smaller tasks so you can feel success along the way, and it's going to improve productivity, it's going to improve your attitude and make you want to be able to practice longer and harder. Think about it this way. If you have to study for a test and you need to memorize 100 pages and you have 7 days to do so, thinking about memorizing 100 pages seems like quite a daunting task. But instead, if you thought about it as breaking it up into 7 days and only memorizing 20 pages a day, that seems much more manageable, and you're going to be more motivated to actually try to do it instead of giving up because it seems impossible. So in my case, breaking it up into 25-minute segments makes my end goal be to train as hard as I can and learn as much as I can in 25 seconds, and not have the end goal of actually being able to successfully juggle. So I can feel success along the way and improve. That's the whole point of the Pomodoro technique, and I will be using it through the rest of this video and every single day. So that's exactly what I did for the rest of the day, was just practice as hard as I can, trying to get down all the maneuvers that I needed. On day 4, something crazy happened. I went from being able to juggle like this to juggling like this. No, seriously, there was no practice in between these things. It's like it just suddenly clicked in my brain, and all of a sudden I understood the science behind juggling. Have you ever tried to learn something new and then all of a sudden it just clicks, like you didn't have it and you have it now? Well, that's not magic. That's something called Hebbian learning. Hebbian learning is explained like this. Hebbian learning is a form of activity-dependent synaptic plasticity where correlated activation of pre- and postsynaptic neurons lead to the strengthening and connection between the two neurons. To put that in plain English, essentially one part of my brain that understands one aspect of juggling and a different part of my brain that understands a different aspect of juggling were both there, but they just hadn't quite got together yet. And so those neurons finally go together, and that's when you get that click in your brain, or that sudden realization and understanding of what you're doing. And that's exactly what happened on day 3. Because I went from juggling like this to juggling like this. And this was really exciting and the most progress I had made throughout this entire journey. Hey guys, quick note here. For some reason, while shooting this video, I forgot to talk about day 4, mostly because I don't know where the footage went, but that's alright, not much happened, I just practiced. Anyway, back to day 5. There's not too much to say about day 5. Day 5 was just a lot of repetitive practice of what I had gotten down on day 4, trying to go longer and longer, and I think that I got a little bit longer, but not by a ton, but I was getting down the timing and the height a lot better, and I was feeling a lot more comfortable, not having to think about my throws nearly as much. Day 6. What do I say about day 6? Day 6 is every learner's worst nightmare. I had finally plateaued, where at the beginning of practice and at the end of practice, there was pretty much no difference between the amount of time that I can juggle. I'd essentially stopped learning, and this is always going to happen while learning, and it really, really sucks. In the learning curve, there's a part called the dip, and that's exactly where I was at this point. It's that part where after the novelty or the excitement of learning something new has finally worn off, and you're still have a long way to your goal. It's called the dip because it's where most people end up quitting, and it's the most frustrating part. I mean, you can see throughout this video how frustrated I was as I kept trying to get better and better and was seeing little to no progress. I even remember laying down in the bed at one point thinking, I'm never going to reach 25 consistent seconds. Like, this is just not possible. I was unbelievably frustrated, angry, and I just didn't have a good attitude anymore, and at that point I needed to stop. And the dip is incredibly difficult to push through, but is a vital part of the learning process. And if you quit here, you will never learn anything. I mean, how many times have you tried to learn something and quit about halfway through learning it? That's because you're in the dip of the learning curve, and it is so frustrating. But if you persevere and push through it, right after that, you are going to feel so much better. And that's exactly what I did. I kept persevering, and by the end of the day, I started recording my times, trying to see how close I could get. This was actually not as helpful to me as I thought, as it only made me more frustrated seeing the progress that I was making was pretty much non-existent. I tried so many times for 25 seconds and it didn't even come close. Getting closest, I think, at 18 seconds, and it was just very, very frustrating, and I needed to take a break, so that's what I did. On day 7, I was feeling refreshed, had a better attitude, and was ready to finally get past this hard point in the learning process. And I turn on the camera, I get ready to record, and then this happens. That's right, so the previous day I tried so hard and was having so many problems to get close to my goal, and on my first try on day 7, I successfully juggled for 25 seconds straight. This was incredible to me that the day before I tried so many times and I could not get close no matter how hard I tried, and on the 7th day I was able to do it immediately. So I think this goes to show that sometimes you just need a little break, and if you're feeling really frustrated or angry, just stop what you're doing, because if you return to it the next day, you're going to feel a lot better and you're probably going to succeed a lot more. So how long did this process take altogether? Well, my final time was 4 hours, 4 minutes, and 2 seconds, which was a pretty fast time, honestly. I thought it was going to take a little longer than that. If you really think about it, 4 hours is not much time. It was broken up over days, of course, because I still have other responsibilities and a job to tend to. So 4 hours really isn't that much time, and it's not because I'm an incredibly fast learner or I'm so much smarter than anybody else. It's just because I maximized my learning. So I think this video just goes to show that everything on the internet is not as easy as it seems. I mean, how many times have you looked at a tutorial on how to do something and it just tells you to just do it, and you don't get to see the process of how difficult it could be, and they don't show you the hard parts? And that's exactly what this channel is dedicated to, is showing you every step of learning and just how long it's going to take me to get there. So when you want to learn something new, you realize that those parts are just normal part of learning. So I hope this video inspires you to pick up something new and learn something. And if it does, don't forget to let me know down in the comments. And also leave a like on this video if you did enjoy, and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.